Jay Hart, Marty Smith, Dustin Long.
Jay Hart, Yahoo Sports. You just sort of were talking about the points and the fair way to maybe produce a champion. I think we can all know that the chase is here to stay. What would be your ideal format? And is tweaking the chase, which I think is sort of rumored, is too much of that? Does it delegitimize, I guess, the system?
I don't want to say I don't care, because I obviously do care. If I didn't care, I wouldn't make a comment that I just made about how you award points. But part of me doesn't care at all, because whatever the points are, it's the same for everybody. And it's building your race team, it's driving the car, it's doing all the things you have to do with the rules that are the same for everybody, so you can take advantage of those rules. I like the chase format. I think the playoff type system is fun. It's what sports are all about. Sports are about pressure-filled, high-energy moments when there's a lot on the line. And the more of a tournament atmosphere you can bring to it, the more opportunity for that. At the same time, I like the traditional body of work meaning something. I think your body of work should mean something. So combining those two things in some form or fashion is the right thing to do, which is, by the way, is what we have. So I don't think we need major changes. The thing that we potentially lack, is a Super Bowl. Where there's two teams, or even 3 or 4 teams, one race, 0-0, kick the ball off. We lack that a little bit, and it'd be cool to have that. But you can only have that and it be legitimate is if your body of work still has to mean something. You can't just say okay, 0-0, last 2 cars have at one race. It's not what our sport's been about. But there's part of me that says, wow, that would be really exciting. Because, how many people watch? How many Super Bowl parties you guys go to that there's half the people that aren't even watching the game, but they're there for the party. And that's what's cool about the Super Bowl. It's a national event, and the more we can do those kind of things, the better it is for our sport.
Marty Smith, Dustin Long, David Caravello.
And on top of that, there's always one person that wins the pool that doesn't even know who's playing. And that really pisses you off. Always.
That is true. Marty Smith, ESPN. Jeff, there seems to be a sentiment generally that Jimmy Johnson and the 48 guys are more vulnerable this year than they have been in recent years. Even including your teammate Clint last weekend said he still has his cape, but it's not as long. Why? Why is that a prevailing sentiment?
Because he doesn't hold the trophy for the 5th time. When I say that, and you guys know my opinion on this, I think we rewrite history. How many of the last 4 years, of those 4 years, how many times did you go in there and you say, well, the 48's hot right now? The 48 is by far the favorite. It hasn't been every time. They haven't dominated every race. They haven't dominated every, so I think that everybody's looking for an opening. But again, I go back and I watch what's gone on in prior years, and they've always been certainly a top pick, but it's never been a lock. They made it a lock because they went and got the job done. And so, I don't think that they're any more vulnerable this year than they were last year. I happen to think they were vulnerable last year, and they were vulnerable the year before. The same way every sports team is. There's no sports team that's not vulnerable. And if it was, then Duke wouldn't have beaten UNLV and knocked them out of the tournament. If people weren't vulnerable, the Giants wouldn't have won the Super Bowl a few years ago. Every team is vulnerable.
Dustin Long, David Caravello, Claire B. Lang.
Dustin Long, Landmark Newspapers. Here's a question you have not gotten this week, I'm pretty much sure. There was a story in the Charlotte Observer about a week ago about a guy who was having a birthday. And
having a what? I'm sorry?
Birthday. And he'd asked people to write on his Facebook page memories that meant a lot to them that they hoped they would never forget, because the guy's grandfather was suffering from Alzheimer's, was going to lose his memories. In that vein, when you look back, whether it's personal or professional, and I know this is coming out of left field, what are the memories that you hope you never forget?
Memory.
Here, my wife's calling to answer the question. Man, you're asking me to get out of my comfort zone here. Professionally and personally are two different categories. Professionally, there's been, it's really hard to say. I mean, professionally, winning Dover, racing Matt Kenseth to me was a big moment, because I respect him so much. I don't know. I'm much better about looking ahead than I am behind. I mean, the birth of my children, obviously, it's really hard to answer that question because I'm so into chase mode. I'm so into getting this thing going that I'm just my mind's on that. And get back with me and I'll give you a better answer. My brain's just not there.
David Caravello, Claire B. Lang.
David Caravello, NASCAR.com. To go back to chase mode, having been in this a few times, how much of contending in the chase is mental? How much of it is composure and mental toughness and weathering the highs and the lows? I mean, obviously you can't win this thing through positive thinking, but how much does mental toughness play a part in staying in this thing?
Well, I think mental toughness is always important. I think it's it's easy when things are going well. You know what I mean? When things are going well, it's real easy to be mentally tough. The question is, when the chips are down, who's going to be mentally tough? And the chips are going to be down for everybody at some point in this chase. They're going to be defining moments in this chase, and who can come through those is going. That's going to help determine who the winner is. So I think mental toughness is real important. I think attitude's real important. And I think not only for the drivers but for everybody on the team. There's got to be a desire to win it. You know what I mean? Everybody wants to win it. The question is, who's willing to sacrifice to win it, and what are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to give up? And I feel like my group of people will give up just about anything to win this thing, and I feel like I will too. So short of our integrity, we're not going to give up our integrity. But short of that, we're willing to make a lot of sacrifices to do what needs to happen.
In order to stay on schedule, we'll take one more question. Claire B. Lang.
Claire B. Lang, Sirius NASCAR Radio. When you talk to the owners, which I talked to most of them this week, they're all talking about parts and pieces. If I can get the car under them, parts and pieces don't break. And we talk so much to the driver, but for the multi-car teams, is it, and the whole team not making a mistake, talk about if the multi-car teams have a better chance of having less mistakes in parts and pieces and team guys, or a team that doesn't have so many people in it maybe having a benefit there?
Well, there's not a team that's in the chase that doesn't have a lot of people. You know what I mean? So every team is at least a two-car team or a three-car team. In Stewart's case, it's a two-car team, but they have a lot of help from Hendrick. So, or I assume they have a lot of help from Hendrick. So I think every team has enough people to answer the call. I think it's important not to be afraid to fail. I hear a lot about, well, we can't do this, we can't do that. I'm really kind of tired of hearing about it. Let's talk about what we can do. There's a lot of talk, and I whenever chases start and races start, it's we can't do this and we shouldn't do that, and we no kidding, can't break a motor. Yeah, really. I'm more concerned about what are we going to do to make more horsepower, more torque, and not break the motor. And sometimes when you get into that mode of we can't do this, we can't do that, you start forgetting about what it is you can do. And so that's our approach into this thing is a whole lot more about what we should be doing and what we can be doing and what we need to be doing versus what we're not going to do. And, we're going to make some mistakes along the way. Every team is. No team's going to be, no team's going to not have a bad pit stop. No team's going to have the perfect strategy, the perfect setup. What do you got? What can you do with it? And that's that's what this thing's all about.
Jeff Burton, thank you so much. Good luck this weekend.
Thank you, man.